What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well, and thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to click here on another video, where today we're going to be talking about the latest film coming from Jay Roach, and that film is called The Roses. Directed by Jay Roach, this film stars people like Olivia Colman, Benedict Cumberbatch, Andy Samberg, Kate McKinnon, and more. So if you're like me and you're at the theater every single week, you likely have seen the trailer for this film over and over and over again. And quite frankly, every time I saw the trailer, I was pretty excited to check it out. I didn't even know that Jay Roach was directing this film. He's the filmmaker behind the Austin Powers franchise, Meet the Parents, Meet the Fockers, Bombshell, and a couple other films that I could say are a bit of a mixed bag. I can't say I love all films from Jay Roach, but I'm a huge fan of the Austin Powers franchise. I like Meet the Parents, and so when I saw there was a new comedy drama coming with Olivia Colman and Benedict Cumberbatch that was directed by Jay Roach, it certainly piqued my interest. I was excited to check it out. So with all that said, let's get into what this film is all about, and then we'll get into my thoughts on the film. This film is a modern reimagining of the War of the Roses based on Warren Adler's novel. The film follows a picture-perfect couple, Ivy and Theo Rose, whose marriage unfortunately unravels as her culinary career skyrockets and his architectural ambitions collapse. Set in sunny California, The Roses explores ambition, resentment, and the sharp edges of modern marriage tensions. And I'm honestly surprised at how many theatrically released comedies we've gotten this year. Good or bad, funny or not, there's been so many that have been released by major studios in theaters to check out, and I really wanted to start this off by praising that. I think it's great that studios are taking a stab at that once again, because I think it's been a commentary for quite some time that it just doesn't feel like we get a lot of comedies in theaters anymore, which is part of really the fun of watching a comedy, is being able to watch it with an audience and be able to laugh with each other. So it's nice to have gone to several comedies this year. Again, whether they're good or bad, of course, comedy is always subjective, which is something I want to say here before we get into this review. It's like everything else. Film in general is subjective, but I do think comedy just adds a whole nother layer of subjectivity that sometimes can make different tastes be even more far apart. With all that said, let me start off with my positives. I think this film is a competently well-made film when it comes down to cinematography, sound design. The performances for the most part are pretty solid. The use of practical and sets and locations, all of those things in terms of what you want from a film that's called caught in camera is really solid. And this is a comedy drama, so of course it's not going to have all big special effects or anything like that. So it's a little bit more straightforward when it comes down to its filmmaking, and in all of that, I think it's really well done. This is a film that lives or dies on its script. This is a film that lives or dies on its characters and lives and dies by its performances. And when you have people like Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman in the lead roles, you're definitely going to get great performances, and this film absolutely delivers in that department. The two of them are endearing, charming, likable, but also able to play very sarcastic characters that are able to still come off likable but still funny at the same time. And I think for the most part, Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman employ what they're good at in this film and give pretty solid performances, and for the most part they're surrounded by a pretty solid cast of supporting characters, with Andy Samberg and Kate McKinnon and quite a few others being some of the main faces in the film, who all have their moments to shine, though I would say for the most part they're just background characters to this marriage that's in a tense situation. And I'll start this off really unfortunately by saying that I think the trailer showed way too much of this film, and like a lot of comedies, showed the funniest parts of the movie. There's so much of this film, when now having seen it, that is in the marketing. There's so much of the film that you just see throughout the trailer that removes immediately any sense of surprise, any sense of, shock and awe. And it's a comedy, so again, it's not like you're going into this expecting drastic shock and awe. But for a film that is based on drama, when it really works and does have these dramatic moments, even though it is laced, of course, with big over-the-top comedy, it is a film that I think could have benefited from a little bit less in the marketing and allowing you to just kind of go on a journey with the characters instead of waiting for those moments you saw in the trailer, where there are quite a few moments that are part of the third act, big moments at the end that are all in the trailer and part of a lot of that humor that you see there. So yeah, I thought that was a big bummer, and I'm sure that's not surprising for a lot of you guys. I think it's been a common commentary and common complaint in the world that the trailers are still too much. They show too much, and this film, unfortunately, is victim to that type of marketing. With that said, though, I struggled with The Roses because while I do feel it's a solidly well-made film and it has moments that made me smile or smirk, and I enjoyed Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman, I think they were really charming and endearing in the moments that really worked, and there's actually some great moments of heart between these two characters as they're trying to figure things out and work through things amidst all the crazy comedy between the two of them. But if I'm honest, as a comedy, I found the film to just be okay. I never really found the film to be overly hilarious, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I knew all the jokes from the trailer, but even the stuff that wasn't in the trailers, I thought to just be okay. I don't really think they were given the greatest dialogue, and I really think this film works more as a drama. I think that when this film has its funniest moments, or the moments that had me more endeared to the characters, or had me, smiling a little bit, smirking to what they were saying, it was oftentimes in the more serious scenes between these characters that had a little sort of like British wit to it instead of it being flat out a comedy. It was the bigger comedic moments, the bigger moments of comedic dialogue that I tend to find didn't always land. And so while there were certainly a couple of moments that made me laugh, I can't really say I was laughing throughout the film, though I do think it's important to take into consideration the audience that I was with. While I don't think the theater was for the most part laughing at the film, there were chuckles throughout the course of the theater. So like I said before, film is subjective, but comedy just makes it even that much more subjective, so this probably will work for some people when it comes down to humor, but I'd be lying if I said I found the film to be genuinely funny. But where I do feel this film really works is in its drama, and there's great moments because you have Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman as a couple who are struggling. They're on the rocks, and while there's a lot of comedic effects going on around that, they are able to showcase some great performances here and show us a couple who is struggling, who wants to love one another, who once had deep admiration for one another, and is now struggling with things like their career goals, things like, jealousy, resentment, how one raises their children over the other. There's a lot about this film that I think is quite interesting and could have made for a pretty interesting comedy drama, but I do think the comedy part of this film kind of lets the film down, and the drama side is solid, but I do think sometimes those two tones clash. And there are some great comedy dramas out there that are able to balance the tones and balance how it tells a story. But I'd be lying to you if I thought that this was really just a great script or a great story overall. I found it to be just okay overall. While I was watching the entirety of The Roses, I just kept thinking, oh wow, I like this scene. And then I'd be in a few other scenes where I was like, this just feels like a generic comedy that isn't really making me laugh, but it's well acted and it's well made, so I'm not having a horrible time, but I'm not necessarily impressed or overly excited to continue the movie. And then you get another scene where it has a nice dramatic moment or a nice little touching, cheeky moment between the characters, only for you to get back to another scene where you're like, does this really service the plot? Does this really service the comedy even? Does this even service the characters? And so by the time the movie comes to an end, I honestly thought the funniest moment of the film is the end that rolls into the credits. I think that that's going to be the moments that shocks the audience the most, but that's easily the moment that is the funniest in the film. And so I guess I can appreciate the fact that the end of the film leaves you with a laugh and a little bit of like a what did I just watch kind of situation. But I wish that I felt that way throughout the rest of the journey. All in all, I don't want to sit here and ramble about The Roses. I don't think it's a film that has a lot to talk about here. Solid performances, moments that will make you smirk, maybe even chuckle from time to time, but it's not a laugh out loud kind of movie. It's got charming, endearing actors playing charming, endearing characters that are also wildly unlikable. I will say that as well. I think that Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman are both given some material to make them very unlikable in the film. So I think that's also something people will kind of struggle with, is like you have this couple that at times is likable, but for big chunks of the film, both of them are unlikable, or one will be unlikable and you like one more than the other and you're like, oh man, why they make that character so much more worse than the other character, only for that other character to be the one who's now bad, and then you ultimately find them to be unlikable in moments, likable in others, and it just never really came together for me in a film where I was like, oh, what a great, fun comedy, romance drama with, this weird over the top, J. Roach comedy style. It just never really worked for me overall. This is the kind of film that I feel genuinely could have gone to streaming and probably would have gotten lost in the shuffle. And even now, in the current state of what's in theaters right now, I'm sure people will go see this, but I can't imagine this is a film that people are going to be thinking about by the time they get to the end of 2025. And honestly, I can genuinely think that by the time I get to the end of the month and I've already watched several other movies, this won't even be a film that's really on my mind. So that's going to be my thoughts on The Roses. So leave some comments down below. Are you planning on checking this film out? Have you already checked it out? Whatever the case may be, leave any and all comments down below. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Looking forward to the discourse down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.